Welcome to the Immortal Podcast.
All right, Joe. Welcome to Immortal Cast. This is the Immortal Matt Brown here with my man Roddy to the side. And we got an extra special guest for you today. Like Bernardo would say, I'm very honored to have this guy and to talk with us today. This is my friend, Dante Leon. What's up, Dante?
What's up, Matt? Long time no see, brother.
Yeah, almost 24 hours at this point. Right? Man, I don't even know where to start with your credentials, right? Maybe give us a quick breakdown. I know the ADCC last year was the big one, right? But before that, I mean, my God, how many tournaments have you won? You know, I mean, you've been competing since you were kids. I don't know. Give us a quick breakdown.
As far as accolades, I'd say 2 world titles, 3 PANS titles at adult black belt. I was champ in most of, at one time, all of the major super fight promotions between Fight to Win, Grapple Fest, Who's Number One, a few others in there. 2 bronze medals at ADCC, and then I've been ranked in the top 5 pound for pound for probably like coming up on 4 years now, I would say. So I bounced around like between 6 and 2 in the pound for pound rankings and been in the top 3 in 3 different weight classes for quite a while. So basically since the start of my black belt career in 2017. That's like 10 years after I started, so it took me about 10 years to get a black belt. About to start my 19th year of jiu-jitsu.
Love it, man.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah. And in the ADCC where you got the bronze, I mean, you were going up against, it was in the absolute division, right? So you're going up against the monsters, the big guys.
Yeah. So I had 4 fights in the open. I had the trials winner of over 99 first match. Then I had the champion of the ADCC Worlds of 77 the next. I lost to the under 99 kilos. For America, that's like 220 and under. And 99 is like 218 and over. You know, definitely pretty big people. And then I went against the 88 kilo guy in the finals. And I went in the tournament walking around at like 170 pounds or 171 pounds. So that's definitely one of the smaller dudes in the open, just in general.
Differently when you go against those big guys?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, certain things don't work as well with bigger people, you know. There's less room for error with somebody who's really big. When we go against people who are our size, I feel like we can take some more risks because if shit gets bad, we can get out of it. If we need to kind of like pull the ejector seat or something against somebody our own size, we can do that a lot easier than somebody who's 220, 240 pounds. So there's definitely like a different struggle with it. The reason I think I have success with it is because I'm quite strong for my size. So like technically I feel like smaller people are a little bit better in combat sports, especially like you know, the 155, the 170, and then 185 like used to be a really tough division, and then now I feel like 185 and up is kind of like where there's more of a skill gap between the higher level guys, where, you know, like in the UFC, for example, if you look at 145 and 155, like there's a lot of fights in that top 10 that are really interesting, and it's so much more impressive when a guy in those weight classes can stay at the top or be a champion for an extended period of time rather than like, you know, a heavyweight or a light heavyweight even.
Yeah, I've talked about that many times. So that's why, like I got the second most knockouts in UFC history, right behind Derek Lewis. And I'm like, well, that doesn't count because he's a heavyweight. So I got the most.
For real. No, that's
He's just got to hit a guy one time. You know, I have to actually work and, you know, work my way in and try to find that punch and land it right and use my technique. He just like wings a big punch and just lands it. So yeah, I've said that about all combat sports, man. The little guys is where it's at. You know, they don't get the love necessarily, but like if you watch like boxing right now, you got Inoue, who's easily like top 2 or 3 guy in the world right now. I don't know if you follow boxing at all, but like Inoue is like by far more skilled than all of these guys, but everybody just talks about the heavyweights, and Usyk happens to be a very skilled heavyweight champion, but
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's like what happened like back before people talked about pound for pound, which kind of
Mm,
came out with like Sugar Ray Robinson, and
Yeah.
then everybody kind of started to remember guys like Henry Armstrong, who won multiple titles in different divisions
oh,
like
you know
back in the
some
day.
boxing, all right.
Yeah, for sure. But like all the guys who were good back in like the 20s and 30s were actually like some of them were like middleweights or light heavyweights, and
Mm,
they would fight heavyweight because that was like the way to be popular and the way to make money.
mm,
So like a lot of them would be middleweight champ and they would try and like win a heavyweight world title. So it's kind of crazy to think about because like nowadays that's like that would never happen.
mm.
Most likely not unless they were like close to heavyweight, like Usyk's situation. But back in the day, that was kind of your way to like superstardom. So like even Jack Dempsey was not a very big guy. Gene Tunney,
Mm.
Ketchel, guys like this, they were like
Marciano.
our size. You know, yeah, Marciano's another one. Archie Moore was like light heavyweight champion for 10 years and then they like got rid of the division. He didn't even lose his belt.
Mm.
They just like fucking took it out. So it's kind of crazy. It's always where like the money and the crowd has been focused on.
Dude, I had no idea you knew about boxing shit, man. I thought you were just
Yeah.
a jiu-jitsu guy.
You went way
Uh,
back too.
I'm a big time
Yeah.
boxing nerd.
Yeah, me too, man. Uh, except I've just got into Muay Thai so much more lately. Well, not even lately, last like 10 years, man,
Yeah.
because it just is silly to me, man. Like people love boxing for some reason, but Muay Thai is like just doesn't get popular. I cannot figure out why. I mean, I got some theories as to why, but it's like it's a complete sport in terms of striking. It's the most complete striking sport there is. Even kickboxing is more popular, and it's like, well, why can't they fucking grab somebody and elbow them?
Yeah, for
Like, it
sure.
doesn't make any sense.
For sure. I think one of the things that kind of affected Muay Thai was like kind of it being so traditional. They kind of steered away from dudes using their hands as much and kind of had really making it kind of their own thing, you know. So it was hard for the rest of the world to like really get involved. It was almost like judo when Japan kept changing the rules just so like they could be more dominant or like more relevant kind of in the sport. Not that they weren't already, but they've kind of changed the rules so many times that they've kind of turned a lot of people away, including America, from judo. But with Muay Thai now, I think at one, you see it a lot more where it's not really like that anymore. You see like the kickboxing champions go into Muay Thai fights, Muay Thai champions are going into kickboxing fights. There's like differing rules, but the fighters are like really active and going against really, really high level people. So it's a little bit different now.
Do you think it's
Yeah, and I like
cultural?
how
Definitely. Definitely, man. I mean, when you go to Thailand, like that's religion, bro. There's like Muay Thai fighters on the walls of when you go to the airport, like, you know, murals on the walls everywhere you go. You know, if you go to any kind of like night market, you could find 100 little shops that have like Muay Thai fighter t-shirts that you could never find in America for like $15 for three of them, you know. And that's like it's literally like a whole thing. It's like religion over there for sure. So I don't ever think that America is going to be as into it as that, but like with what Matt's saying, it's definitely something that could be. I think it could be crazy popular, man, because if you go over there and you watch fights, or even if you watch, like, one has a Friday night fight card every single Friday of every week of every year. So, like, and it's on Samsung free TV. Like, anybody who has a smart TV, LG, Sony, any of that, like the free channels it comes with, like, one is on there live every Friday night.
That's sweet.
What's up, everybody? It's Roddy from the Immortal Podcast with UFC legend and knockout artist Matt Brown. Quick plug for our official sponsor, VitaFuel. They just dropped their new creatine. Builds muscle, ramps up strength, and sharpens mental focus. Works great for guys, girls, young or old. It's never too early or too late to get after a fitness routine. Head to VitaFuel.com. Use Immortal10 for 10% off your first order. VitaFuel, VitaPhuel.com, and hit subscribe on the Immortal Podcast. New episodes every week. Let's go.
I think that's
See those
like the
fights.
biggest constraint in America versus Thailand is there's a fight every single night in Thailand. I mean, Raja has a fight, I think 6 days a week, and, different types of fights, different times. They have 2 days where it's gambling traditional. They have the RWS series, all these different things. So these guys, just like in jiu-jitsu or wrestling over here, like you can compete hundreds of times. It's just easy to just go compete any day of the week. Essentially, you might have to travel more over here, but over there, I mean, if you live in Phuket, I mean, you could literally fight 5 days a week. So it's just so accessible to the people also. And I think that makes a big difference. And it's when you see these guys have 200-300 fights, like most of the fights, they're not like, some championship level fight. It's not like the guy's been fighting, world beaters 200 times, right? Like most of the guys he's fighting are just guys that signed up that night. And it's not a bad thing either. People act like that's some terrible thing. Like, like, oh, he's just beating cans all the time. It's like, dude, he's getting experience competing. And I talk about all the time with my MMA fighters, or not necessarily my MMA fighters, but guys that come in. I'm sure you get this, Dante, where guys come into your gym and they're like, yeah, I want to fight MMA. I'm like, well, have you ever competed in anything before? And they're like, no, but, I want to fight. And I'm like, we think maybe you want to compete in something that's like a little less risky for your first time and learn how to compete, like learn how to get prepped for a competition, learn how to deal with the nerves, learn how to walk out, and learn what it looks like. This is why I said, okay, I'm going to go on a little side rant here. This is when everybody says like wrestling is the best base for MMA. I always argue against that. And I say, actually, what's the best base is like just being athletic and being, able to learn, right? And having kinesthetic awareness. Those qualities just happen to make the best wrestler also. But what wrestling does bring is a guy like Bo Nickel, for instance, has competed hundreds of times. He's been under mass pressure situations, had teams relying on him. He's had thousands of people in the arena cheering him on. He's went up against guys with a straight, murder look in their eyes, wanting to take him out. He's felt these types of things hundreds of times before he goes and competes, right? So
absolutely,
it's not like just the wrestling itself, which is a great base. Don't get me wrong, but you got someone like Israel Adesanya who never competed in wrestling, and how many times has he been taken down? But he had the competition experience and the athleticism and the brains and the ability to learn and how to make his style work.
Yeah, I mean, if fighters could get a chance to get like 15 fights in a year, you could see some pretty like athletic and good dudes turning pro at 20 and 21 and having legitimate like long careers similar to what guys in the NFL and the NHL and baseball have. The problem is with MMA, you have guys who are like 30 years old and they have 10 fights of experience, and then they're begging and they're like basically just begging to get like a good shot or like a good fight or to get in the UFC if they got to show up short notice or something like that and take these like huge risks because it's like really hard. With boxers, you see a lot of guys that have had a couple hundred amateur fights and they turn pro and they're like in their teen years. Canelo was probably like 16 years old turning pro in Mexico because it's the same thing. You can fight every 2 weeks if you really wanted to. So, yeah, it's a great way for these guys to get experience, man. It's hard to get fighting experience when you're a child. It doesn't really work. So, like, you would probably have to do another sport growing up. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it would have to be wrestling. Like, there's some people that played football their whole life that they were never going to be the best football player, but they're really athletic. And if they made the transition to MMA or jiu-jitsu, they could be great. So it's just sad that like kind of puts you in a weird spot where you're on this schedule of like 4 or 5 fights a year. If you kind of map that out, what you need out of amateur and what you need out of lower level pro events to get the experience that you need, you're looking that's like 5 to 6 years of commitment just getting fights in.
And I tell my amateur fighters this all the time, and none of them listen, of course, but I tell them like you should be competing in every single event that you can before you go pro in MMA, because you need to love competing. And that's what I feel like so many of these fighters is not about, right? They love the idea of it. They love the novelty of being a professional fighter and all this shit. But that's how people get attached to outcomes, right? I'm like, you have to love being in there and competing more than you love winning. You have to love preparing. You have to love the nerves. You have to love being scared. You have to love, facing scary people in front of you more than you actually love the medal that comes with it. And it's almost like, man, Jordan Burroughs had this great speech I just watched the other day where he's talking about comparing it to like going to the arcade. You go to Dave & Buster's. He's like, would you still want to go to Dave & Buster's if you didn't get any of those tickets and didn't get that prize at the end? He's like, hell yeah, because you love playing arcade games. He's like, if you don't love wrestling like that, and if you're only there for the tickets and the prize, then you're in here for the wrong thing. And I thought that was a cool analogy.
Hey, Matt, here's a question for you. Like you're talking about the experience, especially for like boxing or Muay Thai, like you guys are saying, well, you got to get out there and fight as much as you can and get as much experience before you go pro or whatnot. But isn't that a hard impact sport? I mean, like the kind of damage that you can take, like in those fights, especially like the amateur ones, and then to build up, like when you go pro after like Dante saying like 100 fights, and then you're going into pro with 100 fights of like that. I don't know, man. It just seems like all the head shots and body shots, that it's such a tough like combat sport. Like how do you get through that?
I give my opinion. I like hear Dante's too, but when you look at boxing or Muay Thai, most of the guys that have 200 or 300 fights, again, most of those fights that they were going against are going to be against guys that had 10, 15 fights and then they give up. Right. So, and the guys that do stay in there for the 200-300 fights, or in boxing, like 100-200 fights, it's because they're really good, and then the guys that find out that they're not very good, they give up and they're like, okay, I'm going to go be a fucking accountant or something. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think like with like what he said with boxing and Muay Thai, it's obviously way more common to see like 100 or 200 fights. With MMA, that's like outside of like Jeremy Horn, that's not really something that you see on records. But I mean, 8 or 10 amateur fights, if you could do that in a year, I don't see how that would be like that bad, because like, to be honest with you, if you were like good and skilled, you're probably like running through all of those people. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
There's really nobody there who, like, even if you do take some damage, I don't think you're going to be just like peanut butter for brains by the end of those 10 fights. It's not the same as like, the UFC is just really a meat grinder when you see it, because like all of those guys are really tough. And then the higher you go up in the rankings, you kind of just have to have like really tough fights. And yeah, it's the same with collegiate wrestling. It's the same with world wrestling. It's the same with competitive grappling and professional grappling, but we don't get punched in the head. So it's not really the same thing. So like, yeah, your workload is going to come down as far as like the fights, the higher level you get. But there's like nothing wrong with like crushing cans, man. There's a lot of guys in boxing that are 30-0 as a pro who haven't fought fucking anybody of any, like, anybody that has a substantial record, anybody with any like real wins under their belt, and they're doing it to get into the ranks to then go against good people. You know what I mean? Or people who they can be challenged against and get into those 6-7 figure paydays. So yeah, I mean, as long as you're looking at it as far as like to build your experience, I think it's a good thing.
And what they'll do in boxing and in Muay Thai, I didn't even realize that they did this in Muay Thai, but Dorian had kind of explained it to me. My buddy Dorian Price, who's lived over in Thailand for 20 years, had, I don't know, 100 fights over there or something. But like in boxing, they'll find a guy that you should beat, but he's got a really good jab. But how can you deal with that jab? You know what I mean? So in Thailand, they'll do the same. Like, okay, this guy's got a really good clinch, and if you can't beat him, that means you need to work on your clinch game. You know what I mean? So that's how you get the experience. Like, it's not that the guys are total cans, but a lot of them are like one-dimensional, right? Or they might be a can too, but sometimes a can could have something to bring to the table, right? Just to test you. Some guys are like journeymen. They're just really tough motherfuckers that don't really have skills, but they're going to be hard to put out. And if you're able to put that guy out, then okay, you're going to continue moving up.
Imagine how many fighters, like, instead of having a weekend where you do nothing, you know what I mean? Like, instead of just like staying home and like train, like the majority of your training is really done during the week. Like, imagine instead of just like not knowing what to do Saturday, Sunday, or just having to like fill your day, if you could just go fight somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like somebody who's like it's just like really, it's like a all-out sparring session at this point. You didn't taper into this fight or anything. Like with what Matt's saying, you're purely using this for like a study purpose to see if like where your level's at, or if the work you've been doing is going to be effective. That would be great. You know how many like weekends there's a lot of like fighters that are here that are like, oh dude, I don't know what to do with my time, and they make bad decisions, and or they just like fuck around and eat a bunch of shit. Like imagine if you could just go fight somebody. Like that would be sick.
Or here in America, I mean, you can just go do a goddamn grappling tournament any weekend.
No, exactly.
That's why I tell these guys to do it all the time. I'm like, just sign up for every fucking thing you can. In America, it's way harder, right? If you live in Thailand, like I said, you go fight 2 or 3 times in a week. You know what I mean? Go to Bangladesh, then go to Rahway and Patong, whatever you want to do, right? In America, it's going to be a lot harder, but there's no pressure in a jiu-jitsu tournament on a weekend. Like you go to some IBJJF or Grappling Industries, who gives a fuck if you win? That's not your goal, right? Unless you want, just don't be like Armin, right? Where it's like, it's not his goal to be RAF champion, but he got awful pissed about it, right? And you trained with Armin, right? Didn't you? You trained with him a bunch.
Yeah, I trained with Armin, man. Armin's a beast, bro. I always, like even when I trained with him, I kind of like could tell he had a temper, but he was like a really nice guy. He was really cool. We got along really well. And then I remember my mom and my dad and I, we were like in the basement. I was home for the weekend. And I was like, Armin's fight, and we should watch Armin's fight. And I told my mom, like, this is Armin, and the camera went on him, and he's beating up a fan when he walked to the ring. And my mom's like, isn't he about to fight for like the #1 contender? I'm like, yeah, I guess fuck, doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I think Armin got like pissed, obviously. I think he got maybe provoked a little bit, but that stuff was kind of that's kind of wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Like the fingers in the face thing, I think that's a little bit too far. Like when you're trying to post on the head and you're poking people in the eye. Yeah. And I get where he's coming from. Like he's fighting for big money, and this is kind of like a side quest. I don't want to be getting poked in the eye or anything, but like with the clubs, I think like if a dude clubs you and you club him back and he clubs you back at the same intensity, then it's good. You know what I mean? If like he clubs you and you club him and then he hits you harder, okay, then maybe like he's escalating it. But I've seen a lot of shit go down like in wrestling that like they're called clubs. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like a forearm shiver, honestly, or like a smack. If it's kind of like falls in like what you see with especially freestyle wrestling on the international stage, man, like that shit is extremely physical. Yeah. And
like they were slapping each other, like they were dirty slapping each other for sure. But even then I was like, bro, like this isn't your goal to like, why do you care about fucking Giorgio Polis in an RAF event? You know what I mean? So but now you caused all this ruckus, and this was my issue that I was just talking about this on my podcast the other day, where I was like, bro, Dana is going to use this, or could potentially use this as you're just giving him reasons to keep you out of the title picture now. I don't know if he will use it or not.
Yeah, that's the saddest part, man, because like obviously like maybe I'm biased because I like the guy and I have a relationship with him, and we will like train more together. And honestly, as like a student and as a training partner, the guy is top notch, man. All the guy wants to do is like learn and train and hang out. I mean, I can't say anything bad about the dude. As far as like a student in the gym, the guy, if he rolls with you and he finds out that you're good, like you're definitely like somebody he's gonna like keep around and want to learn from. And he's a great student, but we see that the UFC is kind of putting him on the back burner, or kind of moving him around. I think it's super cool that he's tried to stay active and do other things, but they're gonna they can always just use that, and that's just such a sad, shitty thing. Is they can always use like, oh, he's doing all these tournaments, maybe he's too much of a risk, or maybe he's this, or oh, he flew off the handle, maybe we can't trust him, or blah blah blah. It's just giving them more potential ammunition to continue doing something that in the first place they really had no business doing. From what it seemed like, you know what I mean? And now it's just they can potentially use this as more of a reason. And I don't think it's uncommon to think that. I think there's a lot of guys in the UFC that have 7, 8, 9 wins in a row against a lot of ranked opponents, and they're not really getting looked at the same way, or they're kind of not they're not even in line for these number one contenders or these title shots, you know. So
Do you
it's
think
kind of
it's a
sad.
marketing? Do you think it's a marketing ploy? You know, well, maybe, you know, are they marketable? Like, you know, some of these guys that are at those levels or get those shots, they seem to be like marketable. Not all of them, but it seems like it comes down to that at some point too. Can we market this guy? You know, will he bring in, like, you know, the views and all that?
I mean, probably, but I mean, Armin's pretty freaking marketable, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
he
I mean,
drives
after seeing
around in
that.
nice cars. He wears nice. His watch collection is world class. He's funny videos. He's funny on streams. He's like just crazy and inappropriate enough to be funny, but not like absurdly offensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like I think he's definitely marketable. A guy like with what you're saying, like Movzar Evloev, I think that's the guy who's like he falls in the class of like not marketable as far as what you see the industry standard being. I think Armin his marketability is a lot more cutting edge. He's doing a lot of things that every 15-year-old and 16-year-old is having like dreams about, driving around in a nice car, eating caviar, you know what I mean? The iced out watch, or like the skeleton AP on his wrist and things like that. I mean, that's things that the majority, like that younger new age fight fan, really loves to see. Mozart, they don't really care about, man. He's just like a quiet dude who does push-ups all day and is like a great fighter. He's probably one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. He has 11 fight win streak in the UFC. They don't care about that. You know what I mean? They don't care about somebody who's like just disciplined, just this. The guy won't even eat sugar until he wins a UFC title. That's what he said. I mean,
I love it.
That's absurd. That's like absurd dedication. That's something that should be like, that's like Marvin Hagler like shit. It only gets popular after you've like been gone for 20 years, you know? So it's just sad to see. But in Armin's case, I think the dude's more than popular enough. I think he's more than good enough, you know?
The problem that Armin runs into is he's not as marketable as Ilya.
That's like the other part too. That's the other part.
Or Patty, who you know, of course, wasn't able to get it done. I'm not sure if they would, you know, how you'd rate him versus Gagey, but, you know, I've talked about this a million times on my own podcast and probably taken some heat from the UFC from or whatever. But, you know, that's what my biggest issue with what's going on with the UFC is it's not a sport. It's an entertainment business. And that's because UFC has the monopoly over the sport. And I mean, we could go very deep into it, you know, with the lawsuit that happened, the antitrust lawsuit. There's more lawsuits happening. Everybody's trying to change, or some people are trying to change this, but it's, man, it's kind of a mess, bro. But that's what happens when you have a single promoter controlling the title and the rank, right? In boxing, you have promoters, and then you have, you know, WBC, IBF, and you know, the other titles, and they're controlling who's ranked, right? And you actually get a meritocracy, right? You win, you know, that mandatory challengers and things like that. Whereas UFC, they just make it up as they go along, which is more WWE-ish. And to me, it's a big problem, but I don't know how much the fans actually care because they like entertainment more than they like meritocracy.
I agree. I think like at 170, I think it causes a lot of issues there with like how things are looking currently. You have a lot of up and comers at 170, but then you got like Morales is coming off of first round KO of Brady and he's undefeated. It seems like he could be somebody, but Shavkat just got released. Like he hasn't been healthy. So that takes him out. And now Bilal got beat by Ian Gary. So if Ian Gary beat a former champ, you know what I mean? Like now it's
and you got Protest in there.
Correct. Like it just gives the public and the fans, it gives us something kind of cool because we get to debate and argue amongst each other. But it would help a lot if there was a little more like there was like more rules, I guess, or there was more kind of like more of a guideline in there to follow as far as like who would be. And, you know, as of lately, Dana really, when he does his interviews pre and post event, he doesn't really give a lot like he used to. I remember back in the day, he used to always say, this guy's next. We're looking at this guy next, things like that. Nowadays, he doesn't really say that as much. He says like things that he'd like to see, but he doesn't really say who he thinks is going to be the next guy. So it just leaves it up to the fans to just kind of like bicker and post fake fight posters and all this crazy shit. I mean, I get my friends sending me like, dude, look at this fight. This is crazy. We should bet on this. And then they message me back like 20 minutes later. They're like, shit, it's fake. Like, you know what I mean? So, you know, I don't know if it happens in all the other sports, but definitely is happening in the UFC.
I think that the Gaethje Pimblett fight was probably like the most egregious account I've ever seen, right? Like neither one of those guys should have been fighting for an interim title. Certainly not Patty. I think you can make the argument for Gaethje, but Patty coming off a win against Michael Chandler, who's 2-5 in the UFC and getting to a title shot. I mean, what an egregious bullshit. You know what I mean? Like Armin got passed up, and I mean, you can make a case for other guys that got passed up too, just because the dude's got a cool Beatles looking haircut and talks shit.
It's so crazy to me. Like all the guy, like I really like Gaethje, his entertainment factor. I like Patty. Like I've trained at his gym, like Next Gen in Liverpool, and met him. I like him, but I just couldn't agree more, bro. I mean, you're passing up Armin, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway are fighting at 155 for nothing, for no title or anything really, or
the
like
BMF title.
But why does he have the BMF title if Ilya knocked him out? Do you know what I mean? Like
right.
It's kind of strange to me because it's like, why doesn't Ilya have that title? I get Ilya's not there right now, but like there's a lot of other guys, and especially with Holloway coming up there, beating Poirier retiring, changes things a lot. I don't see how those were the two guys and that was the fight to like be had. And my biggest thing as a fan is like, maybe some people like it, but I really don't like the interim title just in general.
Same, yeah.
The title was invented during the war when people were drafted. So it was meant as a placeholder until the guy got home from the war. It wasn't meant if the guy was injured that we just make up a title. Either you strip the guy of the title or you just have a fight. You know what I mean? It doesn't really, like, that's the only thing I feel like with what Matt was saying that like controls who the next guy is for the champ to fight is like who has the interim title, which is really not an interim title, if that makes sense. It's supposed to be a placeholder until the champ is back.
Yeah, and kind of the messy part is that, like, one of the biggest criticisms of boxing is that there's too many titles. And then what are they doing in UFC? They're making a bunch of extra titles. Like the BMF, I always thought was the silliest thing ever. I'm like, isn't the BMF the guy that has the title? Like, isn't that the baddest motherfucker? like, how could you be the baddest motherfucker and not have the title?
Yeah,
you'd have the title
agree.
if you were the baddest motherfucker.
I'd agree, bro, for sure. I mean, title you get if you're like the best fighter, you know what I mean? I don't think like you should have like toughest or something. Like it's not really a bodybuilding competition where like one guy wins the show, but then one guy's the people's champion, the other guy's the most muscular, the other guy's the best poser. Like you have all these different like just like little awards. In that sport, it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of opinion. This is like voting and it's a matter of opinion. So whatever. But in fighting, it's kind of weird if you're going to bring all these different titles into the picture when it's the whole division is designed for there to just be one champion.
Yeah, I think BMF should be like the fight of the night, you know, just an all around like a VIP instead of like a whole belt.
Should be something besides like something I feel like somebody can like carry. Like there was a while where George Masvidal was like the BMF champ. I don't even like, how did he get that? Who did he beat to get that? Or did he just get it for like flying knee?
No, he beat somebody. It's not coming to me right now. It might have been like Poirier. It wasn't Poirier though. They didn't fight. I can't remember. Yeah, Diaz.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Yeah. Which is also a crazy matchup for a UFC world title is Nate and George Masvidal. Like that was wild. That was wild for sure, especially at the time where like 170 was a deep ass division.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I say, I think it gets pretty deep, man. Like, and we're gonna do some podcasts about that. I'm gonna bring on some of the lawyers from the antitrust suit. I'm gonna bring in some of the guys that really know this stuff a lot deeper. And when you kind of go down that rabbit hole, there's this WhatsApp thread that I'm on. I don't know if you've heard of this, Dante, but there's all the fighters that were getting paid from the lawsuit all came on this thread, and they started like these different committees. It's an MMA FA thing. Man, I've learned so much about the business itself, and I'm almost glad that I didn't know it when I was fighting, because it would have really like turned me off. But man, it's actually kind of insane the way that it operates, and the UFC is just a fucking powerhouse, man. Especially now with TKO and Endeavor, it's a power fucking house. In with Trump, I mean, what the fuck are you gonna do? You can't do anything. And that's where my argument has always been: the only answer to all this is legislation, man. Like, you're not going to stop the UFC from doing what they do. Fighters aren't going to go on strike, which would be illegal for them to do anyway. Fighters aren't going to unionize, which would be illegal for them anyway. They're not going to come together. It's amazing to me that they talk about this when even the concept of it, a bunch of guys that are contracted to beat each other and ruin each other's lives and livelihood, and they're expected to come together and help each other out. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't add up in any sense of the word, right? So, but anyway, I don't want to go too far down all that shit. I want to talk about some training with you, Dante. Fuck, man, I want to get into some of your philosophies on training. You know, we've trained together a few times. You know, it's funny, the first time we trained together, I thought you were going to be a wrestler. I didn't know that all your accolades in jiu-jitsu. I knew you were a top jiu-jitsu guy, but not as high as you are. But I thought you were a wrestler, man. You're jack, little stocky dude. I was like, all right, it's going to be some good wrestling rounds here. And then motherfucker pulled guard on me. I was like, oh shit, this ain't no wrestler.
Yeah.
But did you wrestle at all?
No, never.
In high school?
Like, growing up, I never wrestled. No, I grew up in Canada. I grew up in a very small town, and wrestling in Canada is not very popular. In Ontario, it has some popularity, but around cities, you know, like Windsor had a few high schools that wrestled. In some of like the bigger towns in the county had a couple of, like, I would say 2 or 3 high schools in the county, like around the city of Windsor, actually wrestled. But the majority of the schools had no wrestling. The majorities of the towns had no wrestling clubs, and it's kind of strange. I mean, when you get up to Toronto and like Montreal, you have a lot more wrestling. Ottawa, like the bigger cities that are kind of close driving wise for me. When I say close, I mean like under 10 or 12 hours. But those are like really the only place that have wrestling. Canada's never really been a big wrestling, country as far as high school, especially. So
when did you start jiu-jitsu, and like when did you kind of fall in love with it and decide that was going to be your path?
I started the week before my 12th birthday. I started just as something to do because I wasn't going to play hockey in the spring. Typically, hockey would end like late February to late March, depending on how far you went in the playoffs. And then you'd have spring hockey. So that would start like April, May, June, maybe it would be done. And then that was the summer. So then you could play like, you could do camps, or you could go into another summer league or another spring league, and that would kind of take you through until the next season, or like the next preseason when there was like tryouts and all that other stuff. So I did that for a year or two. And then the time I did it again, or like the third year around, I was like, I don't want to play spring hockey. I don't want to play summer. I'd kind of like to just like do something else. And my mom wasn't really on about that. She was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, nothing. So like that wasn't really a thing. So my mom had some suggestions of stuff for me to do. It weren't really to my liking. She thought about golf and piano. And I figured that was like horrible. So I asked my dad, and my dad was like, do you want to do jiu-jitsu? And I was like, yeah, sure. And like my dad and I would always do martial arts or boxing or, any kind of thing like that, because he did martial arts his whole life and fought all through his teenage, younger years. But he never really let me do any structured training. I don't know if it was because he just thought I was like too wild, or I wouldn't be able to focus enough. But When I came to him this time, he's like, you should do jiu-jitsu. Like, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. It seems more fun than golf. So I tried it and kind of liked it right away, to be honest. I wouldn't say just like fell in love with it off the rip, because I was still playing hockey. So I wouldn't really convince that I was like going to quit hockey. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as my like last season of travel hockey ended, I was kind of like, I'm done. At least I'm not going to play travel anymore. I'll just play house league hockey, like, if I want to, or I'll play travel for like my town, but I want to do jiu-jitsu more. And then in that time when there wasn't any hockey and I did jiu-jitsu a lot, I actually like competed for the first time. And that's when I really loved it, when I could compete. And then when I realized that, like, no matter what capacity I played hockey in, and this came from like my dad and I discussing it. He brought it up to me. He's like, no matter what capacity you play hockey in, you won't be able to train as much. And I was like, I'll quit. Then he's like, I'm not saying to quit. I'm just telling you. And I'm like, no, I'll quit. Fuck it. I don't want to play hockey anymore. And so from then on, I just did jiu-jitsu. I never played another sport or anything after that.
Nice. That's cool, man. All right. So now let's say somebody never rolled with you before. Like, what would you say? Like, how would you describe your style? Like, maybe your game, or, if someone just, first day roll with you and you had to explain, like, this is how we're going to roll. This is what my game's going to feel like. How would you describe like your own game?
It's hard to say, because I feel like I have a lot of focus on like my top game. So that has to do with like wrestling and being on top and passing, getting to the back. But then I have like a lot of good things from my guard, and like depending on what the day is or anything, it kind of like dictates what I do or what I lean towards more. So I hate the word like all arounder, because I feel like if you say that somebody's an all arounder, it just means that they're good at everything, but they're not really that good. Yeah. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a term that people use for like a mid-level guy or like a gatekeeper kind of thing. But I think in like the truest sense of the word, I really am kind of like an all-arounder. I wrestle well. I pass really well. I have a really good guard. I say my guard is probably like the most slept on thing about my style. And I have like pretty good jiu-jitsu and a pretty deep set of submissions from kind of like top bottom standings. So it's hard to really say. I'd say like all arounder, I guess, defines it well. I just hate how everybody looks at that term, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you say you kind of developed that? Was it your initial instructor? Because I always felt like my first year of jiu-jitsu is where I probably learned like the most. Right. Pretty much, I'd say every combat sport, honestly, like that's kind of the stuff that I still do, the most of, and probably have the best at. So I guess, I don't know, like who kind of influenced you, or what made your style into what it is?
I'd say I had a lot of instructors and people who like taught me jiu-jitsu, and a lot of different people that I trained with. But one of the biggest things was like when I started jiu-jitsu, it was not popular, especially in North America, really in general, and especially in the Midwest. And where I grew up in Canada is really just an extension of the Midwest. It's a city and it's a region that relied on the auto industry, and it was a blue collar town, it was a blue collar city. People would always joke and say Windsor is North Detroit because it's just right across the river, and It kind of looks the same. When you're looking at Windsor, you see all the buildings from Detroit in the background. You're like, wow, this city's huge. But when you get closer, you realize it's on the other side of a fucking river. So being where I was, I trained in the adult class kind of from the start. So there was no kids training. There was maybe a kids class for a month when they quickly realized like I was pretty much like the oldest, most athletic kid in the class, and it was kind of just counterproductive for me to be in there. So I went to the adult class. So the more skills that you get, the less chance you have to get on top of adults, because they're not really going to like let you go on top. For the most part, you're going to be playing guard against people who are like 50 and 60 pounds heavier than you are, even on the small side of the gym, right? So that's probably how I was forced to develop my guard, and why I have kind of like a knack for playing guard against the bigger people, because that's how I was kind of raised in jiu-jitsu. And then as you mature, it's cool, 13, 14, you're starting to like grow up a little bit, but then there's like a little time after that where you actually start making gains. Like you start to like grow up and hit puberty in those early years, like 13 and 14 really, but you don't actually get stronger. You just get like body odor and like a couple pimples, you know what I mean? And then when you're like 14, 15, I feel like you actually gain some strength and like you actually have some testosterone. You start to get more of a temper and things like that. Or like you want to like actually fight people. So like at this point, when I got a little stronger, I could start taking people down and I could start to like use my body a little bit more, and I could start to like the workouts or eating good food and doing things like following a regimen actually put size on my body or actually like made me stronger. So at that point then it became like almost like all the focus on wrestling or all the focus on like getting good at taking people down and getting good at passing guard, things like that. Because for a while I feel like my jiu-jitsu was growing in this seesaw motion where it'd be like my guard was really good, but I never really passed or did any of that. And then I really had to like bring my passing and my top game up. So just because of like the struggle of being, 60 pounds less than the next smallest guy in the class, like when I started jiu-jitsu, I was probably like, dude, I don't know, not even 100 pounds. But so, yeah. And then I've been
Your technique,
yeah.
They're forced to learn like that.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's
Like I had no option as to like how to muscle somebody or like even think about it, because I wasn't only small, but I was a child. You know what I mean? So like there was really nothing that was gonna happen if I like got upset and like tried to push somebody away from me or anything. Like I really just had to rely on my technical ability, and it was a good thing. Like I had a lot of good training partners who were not easy on me, but in a way that was constructive. Like I'm sure they probably could have like picked me up and power bombed me off the floor at some point, but that really never happened. But they would not not submit me or not pass my guard or not cross face me, or you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't let me, and they wouldn't really let me get away with what happens a lot of times. And you see a lot of kids in sports and a lot of women in combat sports are like, oh, I just hate when guys are like this, or like when they don't, give me a real look. And I understand that frustration, for sure. Because I think it's easy for them to be like, oh, I want you to give me a real look. And the guy just like throws a right hand as hard as he can down the pipe. I don't think that's really like constructive. As much as like having a technical exchange, which jiu-jitsu allowed that a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. What was your training like back then? I know you just had me thinking like when I started training, I trained stupid as hell. I mean, it was just, 3-4 times a day, constant training, beating my body up. Just every fucking round was a war, just going at it hard as I can. But like when you started competing, like what was your training looking like and how has that evolved over the years? Because, like training at Westside, I mean, when I started going there, that was when my training actually started having some programming to it, right? And actually some regimen, and they changed my life a lot. Now, when I first started training there, I don't know if Tom's ever mentioned this to you, but we were pretty dumb back in the day. I was Tom's first guy, and he didn't know what the hell he was doing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Louis a fucking wild man. He's like, go harder, lift more, and so I was just going balls to the wall. We were doing like more or less like a full conjugate system.
Right.
I'm trying to actually fight, and train once or twice more in the day, but I'm out here training like geared power lifters, and my strength went up tremendously, but injuries started piling up too. But anyway, to get back to you, like what'd your training look like back then? How's it evolved over the years?
As a kid, I would really just like show up to the gym and train in the classes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just
like,
do what you're told, kind of like.
I would just do the class and then maybe like show up a little bit early and drill with somebody, or like do something with somebody, like get your little extras in. And it was that way for a long time, where like I would do classes probably till I was like 18, 19 years old. And then after that, I kind of like went through every different training method or idea. And had a good stint where 5 days a week we would do like 8 or 10 8-minute rounds per day. full tilt with the same like 4 dudes in the gym.
Nice.
Looking back, I don't know how we survived any of that because it was just ridiculous. And you pile on working out or whatever else on top of that. And, you know, you got a really hard session that definitely gets you in shape and definitely gets you ready to compete, but you have a pretty risky and dangerous makeup of training. So I would say over the last 4 to 5 years, I really put a focus on like programming my training, and the majority of my live training, or like my, you know, the whole kind of like core of my training is built around specifics or positionals. So we're like actively sparring and actually, you know, live go. It's a live round, but it's kind of like from a certain position. So we could start in like the half guard. We could start with, you know, turtle, somebody on your back, somebody with one hook, mount, whatever. I mean, there's a million different ways to do it. There's a million different times to do it. I would say as far as like just straight up live rounds, I mean, there's weeks that I do maybe like 2 live rounds in the whole week. There's times that I do like, you know, I don't think I ever do any more than 12 live sparring rounds, like uninhibited, just full out goes in a week. I don't think I've done that in a really, really, really long time, which has helped me. It helps me get more hours on the mat as far as like actual real work where I'm actually trying to get better and work on skills and work on improving my skills rather than just preparing for how to fight somebody. You know, at this point, 19 years into the sport, I should know how to compete, and I should be able to like pull that out of me and adjust that quickly. I know I need some, you know, 3 or 4 weeks before a big match or tournament to kind of adjust those things more and sharpen up. But at the same time, I should not be, I shouldn't be struggling to like figure out how to compete. My goal should be to improve my skill. So, you know, at the same time that I program my jiu-jitsu training, I also program my lifting too. So like West Side's helped a lot with that. Whether we're like gaining weight or cutting weight or maintaining, that changes kind of some of the structure of the workout. Like this is the last part of my career has been the most regimented. I think everything is there like with a purpose, and there's good people on every end. You know, I'm taking care of the jiu-jitsu side, but I have West Side taking care of the strength and conditioning. I have my nutritionist taking care of my food and monitoring and helping my weight get up or down to where it needs to go, helping me feel good. You know, basically like everything's kind of covered by people who have a good schedule and that are aware of me and that have a relationship with me. And, you know, as far as jiu-jitsu goes, I kind of like bridge that gap.
Now, a couple questions on training methodologies, right? One of the things John Danaher said that I really liked, and we've talked about Danaher a lot. Like he's kind of a unique guy in his own right. All right. But I do think he's a very smart guy too. And one of the things that he said was that 80% of your training should be with guys lesser than you, like still good, but lesser than you. And 20% should be actual like hard live goes. Do you subscribe to that philosophy at all?
Yeah, I think that that's not a, I don't think that, I wouldn't say that that's exactly what I would follow, because the only reason is it's easy to say if you were me in this situation where you're like the most experienced guy in the room and you have an extremely high level, so it's hard for you to go into a gym or into your own gym. And if you were to go 100% or just have an all-out roll, it would be hard for people like that to be pushed necessarily. So it's almost like 100% of your training or 95% of your training is done with people who are like lower level than you or who you could just beat. But at the same time, if you were to take those same people and you were to positionally kind of like you know, implement where they're good or what positions they're good at and start there, this can now become a challenging role. So even though you're much better than this person, it can now like create a challenge where it kind of even things out. Like there's a lot of guys in my gym who are blue and purple belts who are very, very, very good and can give a very real look from different positions. I have one guy that on the back, or if he starts on your back, it's about 100% to defend against them, and there's not a guarantee that you're going to escape or not get submitted. So, I think you can definitely adjust the training with that. But what John Danaher says is definitely right. I don't think anybody's going to get better if they just go in the gym and just like beat their heads against the wall, So like if we just did open rolls, I feel like Max and I wouldn't get that much work because we would kind of be like beating everybody up, and like our only push would be rolling with each other. Whereas like for those guys, they're like 100% going to get their ass kicked every day, every round, and that's going to suck. But if like we implement positional training, they have a chance to like get the better of us and get the better of a lot of people. They also have the opportunity to go to positions that they just absolutely suck at and get beat up. So then there's a good mix of both, kind of like what John was saying.
Very cool. So Max, just so everybody knows, Max Hansen, right? He's kind of your protege, right? Your number 2 guy that's kind of been doing a lot of big things, has a lot of instructionals out there now, right? Videotapes a lot of stuff, does a lot of teaching.
Yeah, Max came down here like just kind of during COVID. He trained with me for a while before that, but COVID, he kind of got trapped in Canada, and it was kind of his time to the old fork in the road, I think, that a lot of combat athletes get. He needed to make the move if he was going to take the next steps in his career. He did, and he's committed to the work, and now he's one of the best in the world, just like Matt said. He has a good Patreon. He's really into teaching and breaking down videos and techniques. Jiu-Jitsu is his thing, and he's also a professional competitor. He's going to be competing in a bracket for Flow Grappling, who's number 1, March 31st. So he's preparing for that right now.
Yeah, watching his progress has been pretty fascinating for me. I remember when it must have been right after COVID, maybe, when you guys were kind of coming into my gym a lot, and I'd roll with him every now and then. And, I've seen him progress a hell of a lot since then. I mean, and his pace is just fucking ridiculous, right? It's always been that way. But now, like, all the technique with it, he's going to be a freaking problem for people.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. With that, and with how Max is a great... he's a great example for anybody that comes in, because like Max, just like a lot of people, came in with a lot of ideas in his own head of like what it took to be good. And there was a time where I was like, yeah, bro, you maybe just do this and like don't do that, or maybe don't talk about this and just do what I tell you, kind of thing. And Max followed the plan, man. Max was fully committed. He completely bought in and he followed it. And it's a great example for myself in the gym, because he's just living proof of what this can do. I mean, if you do shit right and you work hard and you commit, you can, in a short amount of time, you can make jiu-jitsu your career and you can be extremely successful. There's probably, not probably, but there's more athletic people than Max. There's smarter people than Max. There's stronger people than Max. Max is a great package. That's not saying he's not any of those things. Just saying that that's somebody who came in and took it seriously and has worked his way up to be ranked in the top 15 in the world at 155 pounds.
And
he's great proof that to anybody that wants to come out, you know what I mean? Anybody who's coming out is like, oh, I wonder if this could work for me. Like, Max was like you 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and now look. So yeah, it's a great living example,
That little side question: what's your thoughts on this ecological jiu-jitsu stuff? Because I feel like everybody has a different answer to this, and I'd just be interested to hear your answer. I have my own opinions on it.
I mean, I think it has drawn a lot of attention, and it's drawn a lot of support, and there's things from it that are very good, I would say, but I don't think that any of them are like revolutionary or anything that hasn't been done, practiced, or seen before. And the idea of not drilling is not something I necessarily agree with, because I think in some form there just has to be you just have to drill. I mean, driving a car, if you're a race car driver, can be drilling. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something like uber static and just like hitting 1-2 combo or whatever. You can easily, especially with grappling, just because of how involved it is, you can easily drill dynamically. You can easily drill by me telling you what I want from you, or you telling me what you want from me. Like, we could easily drill like that. You and I could easily drill like that and get something out of it. And I think that that's drilling. Yeah, I don't know how it's not. So that's why when I hear people talking about, you know, this is constraint based and stop wasting your time drilling and blah, 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 I'm like, what the fucking, you're drilling, you know what I mean? Like, it's exactly what you're doing. Just because you approach it a little bit differently, you're doing the same shit that I do.
Sounds like position.
Well, I think in jiu-jitsu,
Exactly.
there's like an odd, I don't even know where it comes from, but in jiu-jitsu, maybe because it's like the old school Gracie, you know, originally just teaching like no bodies off the street, self-defense stuff, where like there's so much drilling that comprises of just like muscle memory work, right? Like step 1, 2, and 3 against a dead fish, and, you know, just getting the muscle memory and teaching the nervous system to do it. And then I feel like people carry that on way too long in their careers. Like, they'll drill like that forever and never get a resisting partner.
Yeah.
And then because the other part, like, I've kind of realized this teaching in my gym over the past years, and like, it's hard as fuck to teach people how to drill. I'm like, don't resist 100%, but don't be a dead fish, and give them a look. Like, you know, and like, this is like the most complicated thing. But then I coach my son's high school wrestling team, and these 15-year-old kids are doing it great.
Right.
I'm like, why are these kids able to figure this out, but you 30-year-old adults can't figure this shit out?
Yeah. I mean, I think like with that, I think some people might take it and like run with it a little too much. And I don't need the ecological system to tell me that like drilling close guard arm bars is bullshit. Like, yeah, I've known that's bullshit for 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't need.
What do you mean by that's bullshit?
Like, if we're just going to like, if I'm going to warm up my close guard and I'm just going to like sit in the gi and like work on going 2-on-1, pulling your arm, pulling it across. Like, if I'm like a purple belt level at jiu-jitsu especially like being a competitor, we really don't need to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, at some point this becomes kind of bullshit. So I didn't really need the ecological system to have a convoluted explanation to let me know like these things are probably useless, or like we've moved on from here. But when they try to say like, oh, this is a new way for you to be able to like learn or do this or do that, like, what you're saying is a 15-year-old kids that can do this really well. Yeah, because they learned how to wrestle and they learned things to do, and they have techniques and they have an arsenal of things that they can do. So when one kid takes a shot on another kid, they can sprawl and give a certain defense or an overhook or something with techniques that they actually know how to do, that somebody taught them. Like, nobody goes to a seminar and says, I want to learn how to like ecologically train. People go to a seminar to learn moves, to learn techniques, to learn things, to hear how people talk about things. Nobody goes to your seminar to say like, Matt Brown, ecologically tell me how to like do the clinch. They're like, bro, fucking show me something. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they paid you like money for, is so that they can leave the seminar and say, this is what I left with. You know what I mean? Not a theory.
Absolutely.
Or not like a different thought process or something. And those things are great. And I think those are some of the most important things you can get. But, you know, people are paying to learn techniques, to try and see your techniques. And then if they're good, they're going to build on it. And they're going to take it where they're going to take it. And they're going to exchange this with their training partners and be able to come back with something better. It's not just going to be like, you know, oh, when a guy shoots in, we just need to remember to down block, and like, that's it. The rest you can kind of figure out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that said, all right, because I mean, I could go on all day talking about the training, because I love this. You know, and obviously, like, talking to high level guys that understand training, and but you know, we got to keep it to a certain amount of podcast episode here. We're gonna have you on a bunch more times, though. I want to have you on every month or two. You know what I mean? Like something like that, like just every quarter or something. You know, just because you got so much knowledge and so many things to bring to the table and to the conversation. But let's get into the future. Like, what are you working on next? I know ADCC is going to be a huge goal. You're going to try to win that next year. What other goals you got? What are you working on right now? What's what's on the table next for you?
I think there's a lot of things. It's a pretty exciting time to be a professional grappler, you know. UFC is getting more involved. You know, I know there's like exclusivity deals and all kinds of things that people aren't happy about, but it's good to see a major promotion actually looking to be active, you know, and they're going back to like the first thing we talked about. These promotions are getting out there and they're getting more active. They're getting more grapplers, more fighters on the roster. So it's giving us a better opportunity to get those matches in and get, you know, our money made from grappling matches, which is really cool. ADCC and Worlds and all the other accolades and titles, those are still on the table, and those are things I still want to pile up. You know, I really want to use this last part of my career, these next 6 to 8 years. I want to, you know, pile on as many titles as I can, as many good matches, as many wins. Winning the championship at one is definitely something that's always at the front of my mind and always something I'm like driven to do. And as far as the future goes, you know, who knows? You see what's happened with jiu-jitsu since 2024. The UFC came in, one really picked up with how many guys they're having on there. Flow Grappling really picked up with how many events they're having and kind of their different build-up and makeup of different events with brackets and stuff. Polaris is another big grappling organization in Europe. Grapple Fest is another one. They came back and they've been much more active. They've already had a show this year. So I just see the activity from all these professional clubs is getting bigger and bigger. And I know that all of us, like really high level guys, are kind of scattered around in different ones. Like I'm in one, the Rotulos are in one, Mika's in WNO, Andrew Tackett's in UFC. But I think that one day it will create something very cool. You know, there's always a way for us to go against each other at some point, but there's always a really cool thing when you can see all those athletes branch out and make something for themselves from all these different organizations. It's just more opportunity and something you don't have in a lot of combat sports. You know, you don't really have that same leisure with MMA as much, you know, so it's cool to see that grappling has, you know, such a wide array of events that these athletes can use to benefit them the best.
Speaking on one, April 11th, Dante will be competing at Lumpini, right? Be the same card as Josh, one of my guys. So hopefully a year earlier on the card, and you can stay after and corner Josh, which I think you talked with him about that a little bit, right?
Yeah, he messaged me. He's like, "You want to corner me?" I was like, "As long as I fight before you, I'll corner you, brother."
Nice. That'd be fun. You don't think you'd be able to corner him and then go fight? Maybe, depending on how far spread out they are, right?
Right.
Who are you competing against that one?
I'm competing against Kenta Iwamoto. He's a 2 or 3 time trials champion for ADCC. Sounds like he's like a old school veteran, but he's been like high level since he was young. He's around my age. Super tough guy. He's done really well in competition. He's done really well at the Worlds and Pans as a lower rank. And then since getting a black belt, he's focused more on professional matches, and he has a high ranking in the world, and he's definitely a tough guy.
Nice. All right. Now, when you go up against a guy like that, do you game plan for like that, or do you just gotta go in like, I'm gonna be the best I can be? Like, you know, say like a match like that, it's just one match in the night. It's not a tournament. It's not a bracket or anything. Which I'm sure the game plan is completely different when you're doing something like that. Like, how does your mindset work when you're going maybe one person in a night versus multiple people in a night?
Yeah, if I'm going against one person, I mean, I don't really have to save my energy. I think I just have the ability to kind of put all the focus in on that one match. So that always works out really well. And I feel like that's the truest test of who's like the better grappler, who's like the better athlete, right? If you have a tournament, like a lot of unknowns can happen, a lot of different things can happen. So that one match, I think it's delivering your best package for that 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it may be. You know, whoever prepared the best and came to compete is going to win that match.
Yes, but I mean, are you going to do like a specific game plan for him? Like, you know, I don't know if he's like a leg lock guy or do you kind of just focus on yourself and and do the best that you can on that evening?
I would say I get aware of like what he's going to do. I make myself aware. I've seen him compete a lot, and actually I've gone against him before a while back. And like seeing his game, I make myself kind of aware abreast of the situation or the challenges that he could bring. But the main focus is going to be me preparing myself, not necessarily to be like prepared for what he does, but have some good answers for things that I've seen him do. So like the biggest focus, just like kind of any, whether it's tournament or a match, is going to be on myself.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at fighting over time. Right? It took me a long time to get that far, but yeah, later in my career, I was like, okay, I just want to know if he's a wrestler, if he's a southpaw, if he's like a jiu-jitsu guy, you know what I mean? Shit like that. And I'm like, no, yeah, I know that. And now let's go out there and be the best that we can be. I did want to talk about supplements real quick and nutrition just before we get out of here, because we have a creatine company, me and Roddy, called VitaFuel, VitaPhuel, which we'll hook you up with some creatine, Dante.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure you take creatine. Like, what else are you taking to be prepared in jiu-jitsu? Because, you know, like my biggest issue with jiu-jitsu is, like you said, the head trauma you don't get, right? That's your biggest fear in boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, all the other sports that I love so much. But the jiu-jitsu just fucks my joints all to hell. And I've been an absolute wreck of a person. Even worse than wrestling. It's funny. People used to say wrestling beats you up, and I'm like, dude, jiu-jitsu beats me up so much worse. But you know, it's so what are you taking to mitigate this stuff, or you know, what kind of recovery you doing? Like, what's your routine look like there?
I think the best recovery, or the thing that I've felt helps me the most, is a good diet, and like being consistent with it. I've been like consistently eating well for a long time, but I used to kind of just eat like a bodybuilder. So I would just eat like chicken and rice or beef and rice all the time, and you know, eggs in the morning and with oatmeal or cottage cheese. Or now is like I have a pretty similar diet, I would say, or I eat pretty similarly, but I have more balanced meals. So like all my nutrients are, I'm checking all the boxes on everything, not just like fats, carbs, and protein. So I have a good diet, and I think that helps a lot. I'm pretty fortunate because I sleep well, and sleep, I think, is the next biggest. And as far as like my supplementation, I make sure to drink a lot of water. I take electrolytes every day. Creatine, I take 2 scoops. I take 10 grams of creatine a day, every day. I take magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate before bed. And then, you know, a D3K1 supplement, especially during winter when we get a little bit less sunshine and already not sunny state. So I take that once a day, or I would say 5 times a week, because on weekends I feel like I get out much more and get more time in the sun when it's out. So, but omega-3 is definitely turmeric and glucosamine chondroitin, the sulfate one. I take those every single morning, and that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much all I take. Yep, I pretty much just take that. Protein shakes, and maybe take I maybe have 1 or 2 protein shakes a week, just as like supplement, or if I'm in between meals and I feel like I'm hungry and I don't want to get up and make food, I'll maybe have like a good whey protein mix, maybe with a banana or something. But I try not to rely on those at all. I try and get everything from eating a meal or eating some whole food and supplementing that way. Yep.
Beautiful. Good stuff, man. I got like a million and more things I could ask you, like I said, but we got to wrap up at some point here, I guess. Yeah, you probably got to get to training. I got to go beat up some high school kids. They're getting ready for the district tournament this weekend, so got some high school kids to beat up on. And yeah, man. Like I said, I'd love to have you back, bro. You gonna be back in town next Tuesday? We're gonna get some more training.
Yeah, I'll be there next Tuesday. Anytime you guys want to have me back on, man, let me know. I'd love to. Always good chatting with you, Matt.
Let's make it happen, brother. Awesome chat, man. Yeah, and have a great weekend. Have a great seminar out there, brother.